Welcome to another episode of Releasing 100. I'm your host, Lisa McHale, and today I am joined by the one and only Lawrence Vera, who is celebrating 2 years over 100-pound weight loss in a few days. Welcome, Lawrence.
I got called the one and only. I love that. It's amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on your show.
I'm excited to have you, one, because you're celebrating a 2-year keeping it off. It's not like your journey to getting it off. And also, quite frankly, you're the first male guest that we've ever had.
Oh, that's very exciting. Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be 2 years on March 31st. And I think one of the things that they don't always talk about is that maintenance and being able to keep it off. Sometimes it's a lot easier to just drop and go, but I'm excited. So I'll have to figure out a fun way to celebrate it. So maybe I'll go out and have a nice big meal somewhere just to celebrate that weight loss again.
Isn't that funny? Like, we celebrate with food, right? So
100%. Like, I get questions all the time, like, did you do anything on your milestones? And I always say yes. I always celebrated to make sure that when I was hitting my goals, that I rewarded myself, because it's an achievement, and no matter what you're doing in life, to hit goals. So I wanted to make sure that I knew psychologically, like, that was the exciting part to get there. So if I was not going out and eating pizza all the time or a burger or whatever it was, I would go ahead and celebrate that day.
cool. So I want to get to like the very beginning and kind of go through your journey, if you don't mind.
100%. Let's do it.
So why? What changed? Where were you?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I think the why is the reason that when I talk to people, it's you have to figure that out on your own. For years, I worked in an industry where I wasn't required to be physically fit. I worked in an office, did really well, was successful, but I'd have people all the time say, hey, you should get in shape. You should get in shape. And it wasn't for me. It was to the point where the COO of the company was like, hey, Lawrence, like, I'll let you use the gym during work hours. Like, just go to the gym. And I was like, cool, but no, I'd rather use that hour and go eat something. I want to enjoy life. And so, funny enough, I coach a baseball program and I run and I work with young kids. And we were in Florida for a spring training trip, and it was hot. And I was realizing I was sitting on a bus and I wasn't fitting in the bus all that well. My back started hurting. And my family had also just came back from a Disney trip. So I had gone through that experience where I was a bigger guy sitting in a plane, walking around the parks all the time. So I got back from that trip in Florida and I started saying, okay, something's up. I got to fix something. I got to change something. So we had a trip back to Disney because I fell in love with Disney, with the way that they run their business from that side. We had a trip coming up. So I said to my wife at the time, and I was like, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to set a goal to be, at the time I wanted to be 250 pounds, which was going to be a loss of about 60 pounds in 8 months before we went to Disney. And I got motivated by the fact that I knew I was going to go to a place that I love for Disney. Then I had the ability to have more energy with my kids because I got 2 kids. I got now he's going to be 8 and 5-year-old. So I was like, got to get in shape for them. And then I wanted to go and start a baseball program on my own, which is how we kind of got to be able to connect through from that side. And I wanted to be a role model. It's easy to sit back and tell kids, hey, do this, do this, do this. And being a parent yourself and being able to understand that it's not always just saying it's not always enough. Sometimes you got to show them the road. And I've been able to do that with these young men. So that's really my why, is where I wanted to start. It was just kind of, it came to me. And I tell people all the time, you're not going to be able to have somebody tell you to do it. You have to figure out why you want to do it, what your goal is for it. And my goal was Disney, because I wanted to be in better shape. And I liked the way I went through that. My family and my kids. But more importantly, from a business aspect, I wanted to be able to show guys that I could do it too. And I got to practice what I preach. And I've been able to do that pretty steadily. So it was exciting.
I love it. There's that concept like learning through modeling.
Yeah.
It's one of those from the science of happiness at work from Berkeley.
Right.
And it is, I mean, it's applicable everywhere, right? And so very similar to you, life goals, young eyes looking at me, and just personal satisfaction of knowing that I did something that I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
So the whys are all very different, however, and they come in different forms. And just for the record, I love Disney too.
Nice.
Okay,
We got more to common then.
so I'm always down to do a trip when the borders open up again.
Please.
And we should do that actually with Helen and her crew.
I love it.
Yeah, that would be loads of fun, right?
Yes.
So now we know your why. I think, how did you do the first initial? It sounds like 60 pounds in 8 months. That's pretty intense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, and I talk about it when I talk to other people in my and on my podcast. I actually wish I went slower, and we can talk about that a little bit later as to why.
Yeah.
But it is definitely it was a goal that was set. But what I made sure, and what I learned from my business side, which really helped me, was I had my goal, but I didn't want to just say, hey, 250 pounds, that's it. I set milestones in between, right? I set how I was going to be able to get to that. So at certain marks, I wanted to make sure I was getting to 25 pounds, right? And then it was another 35 pounds and 45 pounds until I got to that mark where I wanted to get to. And I'm a very competitive person. Played sports all my life, and I was introduced to an app called MyFitnessPal. So it's a free app. It was on my phone. And essentially what it does is it just allows me to enter in the food that I'm going to consume for the day. And it tells you, hey, what's your goal? How active are you? And it says, okay, this is how many calories you should be eating a day. So I had done Atkins diets. I heard about keto at the time, was getting very popular. My wife even tried this other diet, which was like putting food into a container, and it allowed you to eat so much. So there's definitely so many different diets out here. But what I found through doing some research and getting to use MyFitnessPal is I got to eat whatever I wanted to eat until I hit my number. And so it became a game to me. It became a challenge to the point where I said, okay, I have 2,300 calories for the day. Let me see where I can eat it. So I never eliminated cheeseburgers or pizzas, McDonald's, whatever it was. I didn't eliminate that because I knew if I did, I'd always want that craving every now and then to go get it. What I said to myself, though, is if I went and ate a Big Mac and that cost me 900 calories, well, there's my 900 calories for the day. So my body was able to learn of how much food it actually needed. And I quickly learned how much food I actually put in my body that I don't need. Like, it is unbelievable how quickly I was able to identify when I would go through the McDonald's drive-through and get a meal, but I'd add on an extra hamburger and large fries. And just because I was there and I wanted to eat it, but I didn't actually need it. And when I started using the app, my body took a little bit more time to get used to how much food I was given. But once my body got used to it, that was enough food. If I ever went above and beyond it, my body was like, whoa, what are you doing? This is way too much food. Slow down. And I still get to that point, right? And I'm sure you've gone through this where you eat so much, you get lethargic and you just kind of want to lay on the couch and you just want to sit down. Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, and you want to relax. Well, I ended up never having that feeling ever again because I was never overindulging myself. And I learned to love the food that I was eating and making sure that I knew that it was enough to fuel my body. So to go long story short, the MyFitnessPal was really where I started. And it wasn't about making sure I had enough proteins or carbs or sugars and all that stuff, because, and when talking to people about when they say, hey, I want to lose weight, how do you do it? Don't start there, because you're not going to win if you just start throwing salads and rice and chicken on your plate, because you're going to get bored real quick.
Yeah.
So this allowed me to really identify, hey, this is the food that I wanted to eat. And then I slowly started raising, like, oh, well, I can eat this cheeseburger that's going to cost me 700 calories, or I could eat 2 chicken breasts with rice and vegetables that's going to cost me the same. Now all of a sudden I got this huge plate of food in front of me versus this tiny little hamburger that I could have eaten. Don't get me wrong, that hamburger is really good and delicious every now and then. But then you learn how to adapt to what you need to actually eat.
So I'm hearing a couple of things that I want to probe into.
Let's
So
do it.
you wish that you had not set such a high goal, and that you gamified the experience, and it's constant research. Like,
Yeah.
it's a constant ebb and flow. So let's go one layer deeper.
Sure.
Why did you wish that you had maybe adjusted the goal? Hindsight.
There's actually two reasons why. The first one is I lost a lot of muscle. I I didn't actually start working out and doing stuff from like an exercise standpoint until I lost about my first 50 pounds. But going through college and even prior to, I was pretty strong. There was times I'd be able to hop back into the gym no problem, pump up 300 or 225 pounds on the bench press, and it was nothing to me. I was really strong. And now, yes, when you're walking around and you're carrying extra weight, you're going to be stronger in your legs and whatnot. But through research, so it kind of goes back and forth, your body will end up saying, hey, we don't have the fuel to keep your muscle anymore. Let's get rid of your muscle. So all of a sudden, when I did start working out, I was weak. And when I looked in the mirror, more research, I found about body dysmorphia. I'd look in the mirror and be like, I look the same. Like I had lost 70 pounds plus, and I looked the exact same to myself when I look at myself in the mirror. I didn't see anything different. So from going slower, I was just looking at that calorie counting and going from there. So once I got used to the food, which I wish I would have done, was ensure that I was getting those macros. And now that's where I'm at in my life, is I'm making sure I'm hitting my macros with getting enough protein, getting the right amount of carbs, getting the right amount of everything else that's needed to make sure I'm fueling my body. Now that I'm at a point where I have the energy to start working out, I'm seeing better differences in my body and I'm getting stronger and I'm going through that. But going a little bit slower would have allowed me to keep more muscle. The other part too is more back to the body dysmorphia part, is they say, now they know that I'm an older gentleman, that it wouldn't be as hard as there's a lot of loose skin once you lose a lot of weight. And that's something to deal with. That, yeah, there's surgery and it's really expensive, but that's something that I learned to be a badge of honor now. It's kind of like, yes, it's there, but that's just showing me that's what I accomplished, because it wouldn't be there if I couldn't be where I am. But they say if you can go a little bit slower and you keep the muscle that you have on, then your body would be able to adjust a little bit better. So those are the main two reasons that I think I would have went a little bit slower. But I'm still happy with where I'm at. I'm excited with where I'm going. So I would not change if it said either don't do it or be where you're at. I'd still try to get to where I am. But when I do speak to people, I give them advice to don't get hung up on that scale, because I was hung up on the scale to want to drop every single day. And now I'm at the point where I haven't hit my new goal yet, but if I lose half a pound a week, I'm happy. Like that, I'm
Yeah.
happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that, because you're a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the bulk of the weight that I lost over the past year came from a program called Brightline Eating. And
Okay.
it's like no flour, no sugar. You weigh and measure your food, you commit your food, and it's not nutritionally balanced.
Right.
And I started to notice, because I'm also older. I like how you're like, I'm an older gentleman. I'm like, I'm closer to senior citizen status than I am to teenager, like, or legal drinking age, right? And you're right. Your body does change, right?
Mhm.
And so um, I kept pictures to keep myself in check, like where I am today compared to where I was before. So that, do you call it dysmorphia?
Yeah, body dysmorphia, and
Body dysmorphia?
pictures huge. Pictures, what I took pictures, and I actually wish I took more,
Yeah,
because there's days I go back and I look at them and I'm like, oh, right. And it's
yeah,
even with that, like you talk to, so funny enough, going back to that Florida trip, a bunch of
yeah,
the kids that are in our baseball program was like, oh, look at these memories that are coming up. And they're like, I don't even remember you being that big. Like even people you see every day don't even remember it because they see you all the time. So they
yeah,
almost get the body dysmorphia in their own head because they've
right,
seen you the whole time.
right,
So it's
right,
kind of
right.
interesting from that side.
So mine happened during COVID.
Okay.
So people, when they see me, they're like always
Wow.
shocked,
Yeah,
right?
they
Like
haven't seen it all.
always. And even people that I would see on a regular, still when I see them, like I see them regularly now, say once a month,
Right.
in their brain, I'm still who I was a year ago, that they would see more frequently, which is
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Um, the other part though is the skin. Um, I actually, as soon as I hit one of my goals, I was like, I'm not on that program anymore. I'm going to do exactly what you are telling people to do now.
Yeah.
Be aware of just slow it down. Like I'm not in a rush,
No,
right? Like I've got a long life ahead of me. Half a pound a week is respectable, right? Like you're
it
losing a
totally
pound
is.
of fat and gaining a half a pound of muscle. It's a win,
Yep.
right? Um, so are you, I know that MyFitnessPal has like a paid one that does monitor macros. Is that
I
where you are
actually
today?
no, I never paid for it.
Okay.
I never used it. And funny enough, I don't know if they know this or not, but if you turn your phone to the side, it actually shows you all the macros without
Oh,
paying for it. So I found that out and I use that as I go through it. And the nutritional value stuff is still there for you. So I actually decided to stop eating meat in November of 2019. So I even became that much more conscious of my protein intake and what was going on. So it helped me that much further from that standpoint. But yeah, never paid for it. Used their free app. I love their app. I recommend it to anybody who's trying to start losing weight. But yeah, if you turn your phone to the side, it actually puts it all the macros for you on each side.
right. So
Yeah.
it's telling you the macros, but I think the paid program actually tells you how much you're supposed to have.
Oh,
And
I even the non one does that. It tells you what your
oh,
percentage is, what your goal is. Yeah. I'm not
okay.
sure what I have never looked into the premium besides the no ads.
Yeah,
There's not much, at least that I've done research on, that says like, hey, I really need this. Cause that's what most people ask me is like, hey, did you pay for it? And I always say no. Like I didn't. I use their app. I love it. Promote it for them and everything. But
yeah,
it has given me at least everything that I've needed, or at least from research that I needed to get done.
cool. Are you still using it? Because it sounds like you may or may not be.
I still use it.
Okay, cool.
So I kind of went through a phase where last summer, while we were still locked down, I was doing really, really well. Then my business started picking back up again and got busy. So I kind of stopped and I saw a little bit of a spike, but I knew what I was eating and whatnot. But to me, there's definitely days that go by that I don't use it. But if I can use it, I enter it and I put it in.
Cool.
Being at it sometimes where I'm away from home, it's can get really easy to go out and just get takeout and go from there. So this allows me to stay a little bit more accountable. But by all means, if I didn't have my phone on me, I know how much I should be eating and when I should be eating and whatnot from there. But I think I want starting my podcast and being able to talk to people, and especially younger kids that I'm dealing with now, because their goal is actually the opposite. Their goal is to gain weight, most of them. So it's actually, I get to talk about the reverse with them, which is really exciting. I want to show them. I want to be able to say, hey, look, this is me for today, right? And when I get to show the mountains of it going up and down, it's never straight line down or straight line up. It's you're going like this the whole time. So just to help encourage them, I think it's smart to use it from that standpoint. And I
I
get to
love
share
it.
it with people and compete with them. I like competing. So
I understand that that app also has that. You can connect with people and see what's up and what they're into, and you can,
yeah,
you
you
know,
get to
so
like them. You get to cheer them
cheer them on.
on. I'm an Apple guy, so I have my Apple Watch that I get to compete with people through my watch, and we go through it. And funny enough, we just got off a week challenge with one of our coaches here, and we both were able to drop 2 pounds because we were both really excited and eager and going after it. So it was a good.
That's awesome.
Uh,
Let's touch in a little bit about why you decided to give up meat and what are you replacing for protein?
So that's a great question because I get made fun of a lot for giving up meat, and the only reason why it's because if you knew me prior to, I was probably almost a carnivore at that point. So
Yep.
I don't know if you heard of the documentary on Netflix. It was called Game Changer.
Yep.
So it went on talking mainly about like the strongest man in the world. He was a plant-based eater, Conor McGregor going to plant-based, and all these athletes going to plant-based. So I watched it and I thought it was intriguing. And I'd seen other documentaries like What the Health and stuff like that. And it didn't really change me on it too much. But I don't know if you remember the scene where they got the three football players and they said, okay, you eat chicken, beef, plant-based, and then they did blood tests.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they said, okay, you all eat just plant-based, and then they did a blood test and everybody's blood was nice and clear and able to go. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to try it for a month. I said, I'm going to give myself 30 days and see how it goes and if I like it. Nobody thought I could do it, which is again competitive side of me. You know what, I'm going to prove you all wrong. I'm going to do it for 30 days, and I will tell you, within 2 to 3 days, I never slept better in my life. I had more energy than I've ever had in my life. Yes, some of that would have had to do with the weight loss, but I noticed a difference drastically. right away. Minus two things. I got lightheaded really quickly when I get up and down. So iron deficiency, I knew I had to supplement some iron into me. And then the protein, like you said, I had to make sure at that point I was like, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to get protein into my body. And at first thought everybody goes, oh, you get peanut butter and nuts and whatnot. And that's really high in calories. So it does not go well with my diet if I'm using peanut butter, because a tablespoon of that will set you back quite a ways. So I started doing things like protein. I'd mix protein powder into my Greek yogurt. So all of a sudden, for 110 calories, I'm getting 26 grams of protein plus whatever, I think it's like 19 grams in the yogurt. Beans. A lot of people will forget that a lot of food has protein. It may not be high in protein, but a lot of food has proteins in it. So beans, protein shakes, bars, obviously fruits and vegetables if they have any, a little bit of extra for me from that standpoint. But now, because I'm so conscious of making sure that I'm getting protein in my body, I probably eat more protein than I was getting before, usually through yogurts and beans and different supplements from that side of it. But I think that was the biggest game changer. And then I also noticed once I started doing that, because I was more conscious with the protein, I started gaining more muscle back. So I started getting stronger a lot quicker. So I didn't go full plant-based because I love cheese and I didn't want to give up cheese. So I just do the no meat side of it. And I don't recommend it to the younger athletes that I train, just because it's too tough for them to make sure that they're going through it. And I think they still have mom and dad cooking for them, or they're at school. So they're kind of at the mercy of whatever is in front of them. But when I do talk to some adults, a lot of people have tried it. Some like it, some don't, some notice a difference. But like I said, nobody would ever think that I'd be the person to stop and give up meat. And that was November 2019. So about a year and a half now, I haven't eaten meat. And the only thing I miss is chicken wings. Believe it or not, that's it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's been, the sleep thing was the biggest thing for me, that I could go home and just, didn't matter how stressful the day was and how long the day was, if I turned off everything, I could go to sleep.
Yeah. I was vegan at one point and vegetarian, particularly when I was pregnant with my daughter. She did
Right.
not have meat for the first 7 years of her life
Oh wow.
and had some type of bacon or sausage, and was like, oh my gosh, I have been missing this my whole life. So um, it's now been 5 years, and we just started incorporating, beans. Do you eat fish or no fish?
No fish.
Okay.
I didn't eat fish before becoming a
Okay.
vegetarian. So it
And then
wasn't.
what about eggs? Do you do eggs?
I don't eat eggs.
Yeah.
I never ate eggs again. That was something that I think I had a bad experience with eggs when I was younger. So I
Okay.
just
Yeah.
don't eat them.
But she does eat cheese. So
Yeah.
again, making her more conscious of the choices. And I think a lot of it for me was, just you're eating animals that have lived a certain life, and just cellularly it becomes part of who you are. That said, I am currently still eating meat, and but I did actually for the very first time buy like organic protein powder,
Nice. Did
right?
you
Because
like it? Because I've had a lot of mixed reactions to organic protein powder.
I got the vanilla bean flavor.
It was okay.
And it's fine. I mixed it
Yeah.
in exactly like what you're talking about, mixed it in with
Yeah.
my yogurt, and now just to get in all my protein, because again, as you age, you're right, your skin does not bounce back.
Nope.
And so I'm going to do whatever I can to stay youthful in this next leg.
I guess.
Right? Like this started to wrinkle, my skin. I was like, halt, you've hit your goal. You got to rethink this, because other people are losing and cutting weight and transforming their bodies, and they're not having the loose skin problem.
Mhm.
And you're right. It's about protein and exercise.
Yeah.
Um, so a complete turnaround. I'm no longer on that program. I definitely am eating nutritionally dense food.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's got to come down to. It's got to be a slow, steady. It's not a race.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest hurdle I would have had, and I did have. There was days where I wasn't losing weight on the scale and I was getting demotivated, and it's tough, and you just have to be able to be accountable to yourself and find an accountability partner. Cause I was able to talk to somebody all the time to be able to just be like, hey, this is what I did today. Hey, no worries. You can get it this way. Okay. So we
Cool.
kind of went from there.
Did you do measuring your body?
No, another regret I have of that I wish I would have measured like my chest and my biceps and my waist and my hips. Never did it. Had
Okay.
the pictures. I have the front and side and back photos of
Yeah,
it, so
yeah,
I kind of
yeah.
have that to go with it. But never measured. So again, some advice that I give people is measure your arms, because there's going to be times where you don't lose weight, but you're gonna either lose inches or gain inches depending on what you're gonna do.
Exactly. I think
Yeah.
that's the other thing that offset the scale. Like, I think the scale is a good measure
Yeah.
in combination with other things. How much did you sleep? What did you eat? What are your measurements? And so, um, it's a full-time job. Like, let
It
me just
really
say
is.
that that's a full-time job.
It really is. You have to, and I think that's what it was for my why, was I was ready to commit. Because if you're not ready to commit, you can't do it half-hearted, right? Like you have to be able to go all in to be able to do it. Because yeah, you could do it for a week, see results, but if you go back to your same habits in another week, it's just going to come back, and it might even come back faster and harder on you, right? So it does become something that you have to be committed to at every stage of it.
Cool. Um, I like we talked about so much, and there's still so much more that I would want to talk to you about. However, I want to talk to you about you being a human being. I hear coaching, I hear a business, I hear family, um, like your podcasts. Like, can you tell us a little bit about you as a human being? Like, you're a regular dude, but an extraordinary giver. Like,
I hope I'm a regular dude. I think most people think it's me as a regular dude, but no, so I'm a father of two with a wife that we're high school sweethearts. So I got a 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. Um, Always been a passion of mine is baseball, whether it was playing it. I started coaching baseball at a really young age, probably 20, 21. I was volunteering in Barrie through their minor association for 5 years, I believe it was. And then I moved. I couldn't afford it anymore. I couldn't be a volunteer anymore. So I had an opportunity for a paid coaching opportunity down in Newmarket. So I took advantage of that and coached at that organization for 3 or 4 years. And then just recently in 2019, I had the opportunity to start my own baseball program, which is kind of our connection. So for the last 2 years, even through COVID, we've had a lot of success in growing the program, changing leagues. And so I'm excited about that. And then on the flip side of it, my career has always been in the customer service aspect, which is kind of where the Disney kind of love kind of fell into, because I saw the way they operated their business and I was like, ooh, that's really exciting. Let me see how I can bring that in. So for 10 plus years, I worked in a call center where I was a director, a program lead at that level, and had various different clients all across the world. So I've gotten to go to the Philippines, the US, multiple times, and across Canada to be able to do training, bring on new clients. So that has always been a real good part that lended together. So for my coaching on the baseball side, I was able to coach and mentor employees, right? So I had teams. My biggest team got up to 250 people were working under me. And so since then I've left that company and I started my own at-home business, which is similar to the call center, but essentially it's just we are an at-home service, so that whether you're a dentist office, a dispatching office, we will employ people at home. And that kind of started because I had my wife, she had moms, and it cost more to go to daycare than it did to go to work. So we were able to have these different moms, or even men if they wanted to come through. I think her brother worked for us for a couple of days, and they can answer phone calls at home. So it saves an employer from having to hire somebody and deal with their vacation time and deal with subbing, that they're just at home answering these calls. And now these moms get an opportunity to continue to work because they don't have to go and pay $50 a day for daycare or after school care, and kind of works out both ways. So now I have my own business. I essentially have two of my own businesses. I have that side and then the baseball side. So I got to bring my loves together from a customer service aspect, and I get to share it.
I love it. It is
Yeah.
so cool when you make a decision for yourself, how the world start to align and you get to do things that you love and get paid for it. That
Yeah.
to me is the biggest blessing in the world when you can actually do that. We have so much more in common that I'm going to definitely talk to you offline, because
Totally.
I also run a very similar business,
Nice.
probably on a smaller scale. Um, but I'm always open to finding like-minded, like-hearted people and sharing and inspiring others, right? Like really, if it's one person that you and I collectively reach today that becomes healthier for themselves and their family and their community, at the end of the day, it's a win.
Well, and you just hit it on the nail because I didn't mention it. I did start a podcast. I guess 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. And before I did it, a lot of people would ask me stories about my weight loss. And I said, my wife was actually like, well, why don't you just do a podcast? It's out right now. I said, okay. And whether I get 5 downloads, 100 downloads, if one person listens to it and they're inspired to go better themselves, it was worth it to me. It's just, time is money. And I know everybody will tell you that your time has to be valuable, but that's valuable to me, that if I have to take an hour out of my day to put out and have a conversation with somebody that has a similar story and someone else is going to go better their life, I'm going to make sure that that happens every single week.
That is like-minded and like-hearted. It's a
Yeah.
big part contribution. The businesses that I'm involved in, I guess just our way of being is all about contribution. You will volunteer until you can't do it anymore.
Right.
And the truth is you'll just find another way that where you can do it.
Totally.
So I want to thank you for joining us today on Releasing 100. Can you give us the name of your podcast so that we can tune in?
Yeah, the name of my podcast is I'll Finish That. It's available on all streaming networks, so wherever you listen to podcasts. We put out a story once a week. Every Wednesday, we talk to various people that have gone through a weight loss journey. So it's really exciting. So hopefully we can continue. And if they have stories that they want to share, and it sounds like you have a story to share, so we'll have to get you on and be able to talk about it.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is the beginning of all great things. So thanks again, Lawrence, for joining us. And we're definitely going to put down your business, your baseball program, your podcast, maybe
Appreciate
even
it.
your favorite thing at Disney.
Yeah.
Congratulations again on hitting your 2-year maintenance mark.
Thank you. Really
You're
appreciate it.
very,
Thank you for
very
having
welcome.
me.
Yeah, for sure. Loved having you. Would love to have
Awesome.
you back too. Awesome.
Anytime.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for Releasing 100. Thank you again to our guest, Lawrence Vera, one and only guy who does all these things, and life is happening in a magical way for him. Thanks again for joining.